Okay, so Ezekiel 28, God is talking specifically about the king of Tyre being overthrown, and he gives us the why. Why is the king of Tyre, going to be overthrown? It says, because your heart is lifted up, and you have said, I am a god. I sit in the seat of gods, in the heart of the seas, yet you are a man and not God. And then later on, it talks about how the king of Tyre, he feels like he's wiser than Daniel, and there's no secret that's a match for him. By his own wisdom and understanding, he's acquired riches for himself. And it just goes on and on about how he thinks of himself like a god, and therefore God is gonna bring him down. His heart is proud. He attributes everything that he has to himself, and therefore, in verse 7, God says, "I will bring strangers upon you, the most ruthless of the nations," and it talks about. And then in verse 9 it says, "Will you say, I am a god in the presence of your slayer, though you are a man and not God?" And then again, talking about what we talked about in chapter 26 and 27, how God does not rejoice over the destruction of the wicked. Again, in 28 verse 11, God asks Ezekiel to lament over the king of Tyre. And it's actually interesting. I don't really understand the lamentation over the king of Tyre, because it sounds like it might be a prophetic thing also. So it seems like there's multiple layers to this passage. And anyway, but regardless, God has Ezekiel actually lament over the king of Tyre and his destruction. But what I wanted to talk about was this idea of the king of Tyre being proud and thinking that he's a god, because I see that so much in our culture where it's very common where we think that we are gods, and like that idea is just very prevalent, and it's very dangerous, and us thinking that everything we have and everything that we do is because of ourselves and because of our wisdom and our understanding, and God's very clear that he is the one that gives us the ability to create wealth, and every good gift comes from him. And it's he uplifts the humble, tears down the proud. And especially within the New Age movement, it's just very common for us to think of ourselves as gods. And even if we don't directly say that we're gods, which is common within our culture, just the idea that we are like gods, and have pride in what we have accomplished and done is very common. So just throwing out a warning of be careful. It's a lot better to, it's just, it can be a dangerous thing to have that stance. So I would check yourself. If you find yourself thinking that you did something in your own strength, check yourself.